All right, we got it. We are working with the waves today. Perfect example. All right, let's let everybody get back in and then we will get underway. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep, looks good.
All right, awesome. Let's get in the chat and say good morning here. All right, everybody can see. Perfect. So yes, before that, we have to start that meeting over. What was everybody's favorite takeaway to date? Whether it was from day one, yesterday, any particular things that stood out at you? I think the things I've seen the most that are being shared on Instagram include the cells that we showed the first day, the sonocytology, how your cells literally sing. And two, I think people found pretty powerful looking and seeing what ambivalence or, being made to feel as though you don't exist or just straight out ignoring can do to the human physiology, literally. Whenever that we don't feel important or we don't feel recognized, quite literally, you can see that your energy follows suit. It's extinguished, right? Yes, ignoring emotion. So imagine with what we saw there, evidenced in the circulation, evidenced literally in the energy flow, what that means if we continue to ignore our emotions. Patricia has says, thank you so much. You're on board with RCC again and broken. So hopefully this is following inhability, long COVID, rest will go away. Can't wait. Yes, I have seen that respond. In fact, if we have, there is somebody who has improved a lot from that third wave of COVID with the pharyngeal issues that we talked about. They may even be in the chat today to add to that. The handshake of cells. Yes, I'm telling you, that whole receptor site resistance, it's not a hard subject, right, everyone? I mean, you saw it and you realize, okay, pretty simple here. We have these two guys that are supposed to speak, and if they don't speak, then I don't get what I need, right? I kind of equate that also to the American Express card. It's like you can have an American Express black card, but if you're going shopping and there is no American Express that is accepted, at the end of the day, you don't have funds, right? So it's kind of similar here. The handshake. The pilot story, yes, with Patrick. Andrea says she loved how that frequency was being explained, truly understood, not as woo. Absolutely. And sometimes that is a feeling of conflict for people of faith. And we actually in the course do recognize those moments for clarity as far as, separating what might be spiritualistic and what's the science or what's the gray area, if you will, the discernment. And many of these things, it's not a matter of whether that they are in existence or not. The proof has been there in the course. We bring studies again from the best universities that have well substantiated. Would you guess that Harvard Medical School actually has living proof with fluorescence that they can show you the meridian system exists? And so, these are top tier universities who have established, the subtle energy sciences. It's not up for debate anymore. It's just up for debate how you use it, right? Sometimes chakras can be a point of contention for many people, but that is a point of the design, to understand and to work with that in certain means. It's no different than working with acupuncture. Acupuncture doesn't make you a Taoist, does it? It doesn't make you, a Buddhist. So those are the things that we definitely go through and we clarify so that you have the toolbox that you're comfortable with working with, understand how they work, and absolutely don't work with tools that you don't understand. Remember how powerful is the word, right? One of the images that I had planned to share today, and I think maybe we didn't get it on one of the slides, but it was actually an image showing you the 3D look of sound based on the vowels. And so you can literally see the different shapes, the torus fields that form, because sound is actually spherical. It's 3D, right? We live in a 3D world. So you see things represented on paper, that's only 2D, right? Just like the geometry that you learned in school, it's 2D. We actually live in a 3D world. So the way that that really looks is different. Wow, that's amazing actually seeing the meridians. Yes, they actually use fluorescence, and it's not just been fluorescence, but there's been several different types of tests that we've actually been able to see substantiate that. There's more blood flow that goes to the area. There's just many other studies as well. We talk about that in the course, of course, pun intended. All right, I think we've got pretty much everybody, so we can kind of get going here. I'll just read some of these last comments and let's get on our way. So love how this is approachable for practitioners as well as stay-at-home mamas. Exactly, because again, if something is a truth, then it should be simple, right? A book that I reviewed, it was about family constellations. If any of you might be familiar with that subject, and we talk about that in the course too, family traumas. It didn't start with you, if anybody's ever kind of read that book or the series of authors that kind of go into those types of things and subjects. But, it was said that the difference between, a guru or a teacher is that a teacher will have a subject, right? And they will have that handed over to yourself. But the guru will have a system, and they will give you themselves, right? And I feel like that is what we've done here with this course, because this is not easy to take a bioenergetic individual approach and say, how do we actually make this something that is a system without losing that individuality? It took over 3,000 different clients to be able to see how we can do that and do the checks and balances and say, okay, every single time this is checking out. We've got all the puzzle pieces finally together. And that system will not only lead you to better results, and that system will not only give you and deliver you the answers or the solutions, but it's going to make that process a lot more efficient. Because for those of you who may want a goal of a private practice, but don't yet have that, when you get started, you may realize that it's not as easy as it seems. You're brand new, and having people to kind of, trust to spend their money to work with you, to take the leap of faith to work with you, and you haven't even seen, many clients or patients yet. That takes a while to build up that skill set, to have all the theory that you've learned and how to apply it, right? And so that's why we usually value clinicians that have experience, because there is no substitute for the knowing, right? In today's day and age, I can't tell you how many times you have, the physicians that are now, and again, it's nothing against them, but they're having to be behind the computers and the data set, and they're having to look at reports, and they've lost touch with literally the touch of the human being, to be able to hear on the stethoscope, what does a murmur sound like, instead of having to say, wait and see, let me see the EKG. Oh no, you don't have one. So that part, that cultivation takes some time. We've done that process in great part for you. And we're going to talk about that today, actually, how that you can benefit from that. And if you are interested in this course, what exactly are you going to get? What exactly is that experience going to look like? Cara has said, yes, I asked so many of my clients to join this week. They have so much to glean and apply to their scans. Absolutely. Again, you don't have to have the end goal to become some sort of, engineer, innovator in the field. We're always learning, and we can learn at the pace that we, feel comfortable with. But the first level of this course is going to make you proficient to enter practice. And we're going to talk about why. So let's go ahead. And for those of you who are new and just joining us, this is hosted by Root Cause Clinic. So Root Cause Clinic is a biophysics laboratory. We use physics instead of chemistry to make our assessments. And the reason why we do that, and the reason why that we believe that that is the way of the future, is because physics animates chemistry. So physics, if you're familiar with the periodic table, we have that organized by atomic number. Physics is what tells chemistry how to do chemistry, right? So if we can't find something at the chemical level, then we've got to look at what creates that, and that is physics. That's what we do. And so our assessments will yield very, very, very thorough results. And what we do with that is we look at what you've put on your intake sheet, what are your symptoms, and we match that up with what has come up on the scans. And it may be areas of the body that you had no clue could be a problem for you. And we establish those connections. So just as we discussed yesterday, we may have somebody who might have interstitial cystitis as their symptom. And we see thyroid markers and parathyroid markers and different types of chemicals and tissue growths and all this stuff. And we have to kind of back engineer that back to say, what does this do in the way of explaining this? And then we end up finding, cancerous tissue in the thyroid. And that person, the last thing that they thought was a problem was that, because their thyroid labs were fine, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's kind of an example of what we're doing here. It helps you to get the tools to look outside the box. And the looking outside the box is almost an infinite journey. So it dials that down into a few key areas that you can really put your time. And as you grow and make more and more connections, that's just information you continue to build and take with you. And it becomes easier and easier each time. So off to the left, we have a tincture. This is a structured water with organic grape alcohol that we actually send in a superconductor, the frequencies into that tincture for you. The middle is a test kit. So we do actually send the test kit to your home. So you complete these specimen collection processes in your residence and you send it back with a prepaid shipping envelope. It arrives at our lab, and when it does, we process it. We upload the results, and then those go to your portal as well as the practitioner that you're working with. And off to the right is really something that sets us apart. We do have laser rentals, so we actually will calibrate a laser specifically for you. And that will actually be shipped to your house and you can actually use that. And it's programmed not just with the 635 medical grade red light, but it will have custom frequencies that we literally slip into the cell. So that whole handshake thing that you saw yesterday, 635 nanometers, kind of like a pass. It's like the universal key, it can get into the cells. And so what we're doing is we're taking advantage of that wavelength and we're allowing the specific frequencies that we intend for you to slip in while we're doing it. I love lasers for those of you who are very sensitive and can't take alcohol, or just, in general, you need light as a therapy approach because as we talked about, kind of sometimes just the actual tissue itself being where that the action or mechanism is stimulated is what you need. So that's a brief introduction to us. On the right, House of Hertz, this is our microcurrent neurofeedback. We have 2 centers, one in St. George, Utah, one in Solana Beach, California. We may even have one of our nurses, Nurse Nicolasa, in the chat today. And of course, that wouldn't be complete without Physics Meets Physiology. My name is Veronica. I'm one of the founders of Root Cause Clinic, and my other half is also in the chat. She is Deanna Morales. And we are presenting the Beyond the Bloodwork Summit to you on behalf of Where Physics Meets Physiology. So again, we've already kind of reviewed a bit, but for those of you who are new, looking beyond the blood work, it doesn't mean that blood work is not relevant. But if we don't have the answers coming from blood work, if your blood work is allegedly fine, then you're probably not going to get very far, right? Because you're not recognized as having an issue or problem. And that's a problem, pun intended. And so us looking at the level of physics gives us options that we wouldn't have in blood work. And we've really kind of made a point of one thing, and it doesn't mean that we're trying to stress any type of a fear approach, but if you can have perfect routine blood work and have stage 4 cancer, because a lot of cancer won't necessarily yield itself in the routine blood work, you're not going to get the extra added tests, right? Because the doctor is going to say, well, you don't have anything, wrong here. So there's not really justification to it. So there's not really a justification. Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I got muted accidentally there, everybody. And so when that happens, you're going to kind of essentially start becoming cut off to being able to maybe find the type of blood work that could substantiate things. Because again, the routine blood work can be just fine, even in the presence of stage 4 cancer. Does that mean that you all need to worry you have cancer? Absolutely not. That's not the takeaway here. But the point being is if that can go and detect it, the thyroid symptoms that you believe you're having, but don't have the substantiation in the blood work for, good luck getting that fixed, right? The thyroid dysfunction begins years in advance, and you can see why, because if that handshake isn't happening, that handshake can stop happening for years and you are deficient of the thyroid hormone. But as you'll see, it's still existing, it's still physical, it's still in the blood, so it's going to come up, so your blood work's going to be fine, right? The thing is that the blood is the recording of what already is. And so if you're seeing something come up in blood work, it's already happening. Doesn't mean we still can't shift it or do things about it. But it would be a lot better to be able to take what's actually erecting that, right? As we had our software versus hardware kind of analogy. So it's important to understand how deep root cause really goes, right? Now let's talk about how we're going to introduce that concept to you. So in the first level of the Physics Meets Physiology course, meaning this program here that we have ready to release to you now, there are 4 modules. And in the first module, we go in depth to learn root cause clinics, root cause isolation system. So this is the system where that you will learn how to isolate from the data where to begin on a case, and how to get an outside the box answer, how to distinguish things that already the client may be familiar with, or yourself, if this is, again, Dr. Mom, who's at work, and how you can maximize, your time and also your money to be able to really say, where am I going to start? What makes most sense? So the first intro is in really learning the system, learning the mindset, because if you do not have the ability to approach this situation, then everything else is just going to be memorization. And memorization is not the model that we teach here. You have to have the system, because the system is what sets you free. The system is what allows you to put that over every other obstacle and to be able to understand how to exit that maze. So in the first level, we go through that, and you actually will have your scan, which we'll talk about that as well. But there are labs that are correlated, as in lab integrations with these modules that go with the lectures. And you will actually, since the very first lesson, get into reviewing your scan, roll up the sleeves, and actually learn how to do this. Module 2 is where we get into actually learning the physics. And so, Andrea made a comment, she loves learning the non-woo version of all of this. This, whatever spectrum of that you are on is great, but we do bring an evidence-based lens, because it's my goal that, whether you're a medical doctor, or whether that it is important to you that as a person of faith, that you know soundly that you can speak to the concepts that you're using on your family and or in your practice, that you will be able to, well, that I said, everybody may not agree with you. We can't guarantee that. Nobody can disprove what we have or what we will bring here. Understanding things such as, classical types of physics, and in a way that's simple enough that, you can teach in homeschool if you want. Quantum physics, more importantly, how that they come together. Because in this model, I'm actually going to propose a theory of everything, meaning the Newtonian world and how it actually transcends into the quantum world. Right now, that doesn't exist. There's the quantum world and there's the Newtonian world, and they're at odds with each other. This actually is a model, a system that works for both. And that's the first time that I've ever seen. I don't know of anybody else who has that. This includes the realm of subtle energies as well, and how we apply this to the human understanding. So for those of you who want to know about things like the meridian system, how it works, the Chinese medicine system, the Vedic system, as well as, things like morphogenetic fields, facial fields, reflexology, dental meridians. We go through every single bit of that there. You have to understand how energy works to be able to understand how to derive value from the markers themselves. Otherwise, if you're just going to look at data and say, well, this looks like a kidney marker, and not be able to distinguish that this is a certain type of kidney marker based on the way that energy is related to each other, then you're doing no different of a job than the straight face value, functional integrative type of medicine. That's not the approach that we're working here. It's really a disservice to bioenergetic or biophysics type of interpretation if you're using the same hardware mindset for a software game, right? So once we get out of level 2, or once we get out of module 2, we have module 3. This is where the big chunk of all of it lies, okay? This is where we have anatomy and physiology. And so there are texts that go tandem, hand in hand with this module, where that you will read anatomy and physiology book before coming to the lecture. And then we have the slides, which animate all of this from a Newtonian meets quantum point of view. So we will give you the quantum biology, and you will see how that connects in with the Newtonian biology. So this is the answer to what I saw was one of the biggest things missing from a lot of other training programs, is that, people were going and learning all the cool things that they wanted to learn. You want to learn about the microbiome and a gut cleanse and how to do this for a lot of these functional programs. And I get it that they give you some solutions that are kind of, like we said, those protocol panaceas that can help a lot of people, but you don't have the system. And so using that kind of becomes complex when you hit your first, snafu where someone doesn't react the way that supposedly, that protocol said that they should. Then what do? You have no idea what to do you? Because you don't know the system. You don't understand. You don't have the ability to derive that. This is that system. And so many of these programs, I was kind of shocked to see that they do not have any anatomy and physiology. How can you not how can you paint if you don't know what canvas that you're painting on, right? You don't know the material or the medium that you're using. So you absolutely have to have an anatomy and physiology understanding. But I also understand there's going to be people coming to this course that may already have that to a higher degree. They may feel it's redundant to go through the same mechanistic learning model of anatomy and physiology. So there is the ability here to study as much of that mechanistic intro to anatomy and physiology as you want by spending more time in that actual text. And if you're already feeling confident there, then you can kind of just really put your time into the lectures, which really bring to life a lot of the quantum biology. And so we learn the body from two different ways. We learn it from the mechanistic machinery, and we learn it also not just from the hardware standpoint, but we learn it from the software standpoint, right? These kind of things that I've talked about today, and yesterday and the day before, there's 1,000 slides of content to that degree. And so in learning the organ system by organ system oscillation, you can recap. Now you have the system from RCC, how to approach the different types of material and data that you will see, the continuum of energy and understanding the physics which are underlying all of these markers, the body from an energetic point of view, and also finally emotions, which many of you have probably found to be the most powerful component so far in what you're looking at. This can be alone, something that can make somebody better. It's not that it's in their head, but it's literally in their flesh. And so we do give tools, not just the information of understanding things like, for example, family constellations. If that sounds like a foreign language to you, don't worry. In the course, we go over it. But things like family trauma, generational trauma, emotion code. There might be therapies you've tried and you thought, well, this sounds really silly and weird, but it works. So I'm going to do it. We have cases where people have done nothing but emotional healing at Root Cause Clinic. People have been sick for years, and within a month or two, they're like 90% better. We're talking people with deep sarco tissue pain, etc. So this is definitely related. Feelings become flesh. And by working with the software, we're working with the software to stop the cycle that ends up manifesting in the flesh. There's a whole survey of all the things that you should know about in the field. And that's really our goal here, is to give you that survey of education across the board in all topics, but also bring you the things that we're doing uniquely here at RCC that is not out there. You should be able to hold a conversation and with somebody in the field and know who are, the main disciples who have pioneered this type of theory, this type of approach, and feel confident to hold those conversations, but also have something outside the box that is not being said in those conversations that will help you to stand out. And so this is the emotional section. I also unleash a couple different types of therapies and approaches related to trauma and how to decode the emotional scan here. This is where you actually go through the emotional scan in depth. We have 5 different lessons as a part of this module. There's actually 12 lessons in that organ system by organ system oscillation module that we just looked at in lesson 3. And you'll go through labs there as well. So at the end of each of these lessons and lectures, there's yet another section that you go to where that there is a breakdown where you see me in a Zoom and we're going through the markers and I'm showing you how to make the connections, right? So an example could be, we might have a hand scan, right? And so in that hand scan, we may see that there are, markers for, the pericardium meridian. We may see that there's things like heavy metals, and we may see a few other things. We're going to learn how that we can make those connections within the hand and open up a whole new world to you. And that's just one scan, right? You have 50 of these that we're going to go through and review. And don't forget, you have the mainstay root cause scan as well. And so your labs will consist of reviewing the data, pulling the sleeves up, doing the application, because theory is great. I love theory, but what do you do with it, right? And so that's actually completing, the course as far as what this level will bring for us. We will have a rollout after this course, probably not for a few months after, but another opportunity as well to extend for those of you who want to continue your education. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But this level alone will allow you to enter practice. It will give you the survey and the baseline to be proficient. You will have the system, so the efficiency and the way to approach a case will be there for you. You will have a background in biophysics that will be evidence-based. You will have an understanding of anatomy and physiology from both the mechanistic or the Newtonian models as well as the quantum models, so you can speak intelligibly in both circles. And then you will be up to date on the latest and the greatest, as well as the unique therapies that I'm going to drop for the first time in module 4 with this lesson, with the emotional section. So you'll have everything you need to get started. Now, after that, like most people, when we start entering this field, we become addicted to it, right? We want to learn and we just don't even know what we're going to do with that information. We just know we need to learn it, right? It calls us. And so once we get into that next tier of education that will drop, this will be at an advanced level. And this is where we really get into pathology. And so this is where things like the different types of pathogens, and for example, something to the extent of, how do we know when something is hardware or when something's holographic, right? We talked about lightly some pathogens yesterday and how that the immune system kind of gets stuck in these cycles and then we don't really move on from that. Well, understanding, how do we discern that and how do we use, in some cases, homeopathy when this is just kind of a memory that the immune system needs to work through versus, what if this is something we actually need to take on a more concrete or hardware level? How do we distinguish and how do we delegate? How do we allocate? What percent do we throw at software? What percent do we throw at hardware? How do we delegate between different types of clients, right? So if you're looking to be able to work with individuals that are not, some of the more entry level cases, then this is allowing you to understand the resiliency so that you can do that. So we will go through extensively everything within the pathogen world. And in module 6, right? So we have 4 modules that we have in level 1, and then we have 4 modules that we'll have in level 2. So module 6 here is actually where that we'll learn about toxicology. So we have the pathogens, and then now we have the toxins, right? Both of these involved in the immune system response, but in very, different ways, and also distinguishing the hierarchy. So if you have both of these things coming up, how do you determine what I call the order of operations? There's too many people out there that just put a one size fits all. This is what you do first. This is what you do second. This is what you do third. This is what you do, blah, blah, blah. Well, that works for maybe 60% of the people. We've talked about that, right? If your problem and your provocation to that problem are in the same place, that might work. If it doesn't work for you, then what are you going to do, right? This is that guidance to help you understand, again, the system and where to go about linking up where that crack came up so that you can fix it. We also go into building biology here. Building biology is essentially looking at our environments to detect where that could be actually influencing us. Remember, we talked about nature's software and how that can affect us. Your home affects you, right? Everything that we surround ourselves with will affect us. And this will also go into what we can do to our home environments, because the way that I look at things is that, yes, I absolutely try to live as clean as possible. But in no way do I live in a bubble. In no way do I ingredient watch down to the minutia that I'm living, under a rock. I don't believe that is the way to live. Resiliency has to be a part of our human nature. And we're going to have, again, waves and interference every day. So while that I don't go look for the problems, I understand that they will be around me, and rather I strengthen myself to be resilient against them. So there are many things that you can quite literally do to strengthen, your home, to strengthen your workplaces, your car, your automobile, etc. And that's what we talk about in that particular module. So moving on from pathology, basically where we had pathogens, and then toxicology and environmental, basically the environmental energetic version of environmental medicine. We then get into a full comprehensive complete list of therapies. Mind you, we present therapies as well throughout level 1. This is just going to be more advanced and expert level kind of integration when we get into the advanced stage of the program, because this will allow you an understanding of how to pick which therapy for which person on a little more precise account. We'll go through the physics and how everything works, the underpinnings of, probably I think it's like 45 therapies minimum. I'll probably keep adding to that. So who knows how much it will be when you actually get to that portion of the course. But everything and anything from, like we said, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, acupressure, ionic foot baths, cranial sacral. How is it working and what is it doing? And, who do you recommend it for? Even just such tips that, are not talked about. For example, cranial sacral therapy. Everybody goes and gets these appointments done during the day, right? Because you don't have your cranial sacral therapist available at, 10 p.m. at night, unless that they're doing house calls. But that's kind of part of the problem. You're already going to set up to fail out the gate, because cranial sacral work really is most productive at night. At night is when your lymphatic system or your lymphatic system of your brain is going to drain. And so There's maneuvers that you can learn to simply do on yourself, on your own family, on your own children. You don't have to go see the cranial, sacral therapist anymore. And you can have that benefit actually double just because you're doing it at the right time, just because you understand the cycles of the body and when to integrate that. When your body says, yes, I'm receptive, I'm ready, I'm in a good mood to talk, let's do it, as opposed to, I'm busy doing all this stuff in the day, digestion, breaking down yesterday's toxins, and you want me to do this? Like, are you kidding me right now? You have to interject and know when the time is right, right? Women, talking to your husbands, you have to know the right time and mood to approach them, right? Same thing for the children. Like there's a time and a place to help coach a child, right? And so the same with our body. We have to kind of take into consideration the cycles. You'll learn the cycles. And actually, we learn the cycles in level 1. We just learn a little bit more in depth about how to strategically work with those in the second advanced level. So from there, we actually get into the last module of that advanced level. And this is where we will integrate biogeometry, biomagnets, and crystals. And again, this is not woo. You've seen the crystalline structures that there are in viruses, right? And we've showed you how the future is literally going to be taking a structure or taking geometry to mold a cell so that the cell will turn into the type of cell that we want it to based on the form, because form predates function. And so by understanding those mechanisms and using them for yourself, this is literally, in my opinion, the most freest medicine and perhaps maybe the most effective out there. And for those of you who your terrain is the problem, and I don't mean from your gut flora's imbalance and all of that, that's the effect. Your polarization, your charge of your actual tissues, right? If that is a problem, then this is some of the best stuff that you can do. And maybe for the cost of $20 for the magnets and the study skills that you'll get for this, like you can do this on yourself every day for free, right? So biogeometry would be the process of learning specific movements and rhythms. Some of you might kind of be familiar with Tai Chi, right? Tai Chi is not so much about literally getting the physical exercise as it is about certain movements which are associated with creating certain energy effects, right? Let me give you an example. Who is a person that when they are upset, they want to clean? I'm going to look in the chat for this one because, I know that I'm a person that when I find myself anxious, I like to organize. I like to clean or organize. I want to see who else is like me. Let's see. Who else is a cleaner? Yep. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Let's think about what happens when we clean, right? Okay. That particular action is quite literally helping us to release anger from the liver, right? That's just one kind of example, right? And there's actually certain patterns that we can do that are going to behoove that release more productively than others, right? So when the body's pushing us to act, for example, there's actually reasons why. Even children who won't sit still, right? Why aren't they sitting still? We talked about that chloride ion the other day, which is stimulatory. They are shaking around and fidgeting because quite literally their cells are like a light bulb that's starting to almost seem like it's going to blow up because too much voltage is going through that light bulb and more is not more at that case. Now it's that filament that's ready to burst, right? So of course the kids are shaking around and they're moving and they're fidgeting because the body's saying too much energy, too stimulatory, get it, out, right? More is not more. Nature does never over-endow. And that's something that we have a problem with now because we are in a state of being over-endowed, unfortunately. It's been a blessing, in some ways, but it's also yielded its own unique set of problems. And so yes, biogeometry, that's just one example. We have other things and instances where that you can have certain tracing patterns because in nature, certain movements yield certain types of effects, okay? So using that on your own self can help to open up certain energy centers. And I have actually done this on myself. And I have actually registered this as, probably one of the most powerful things that I have ever seen so far. I've done it and I can literally feel the gland heating up as I do this when I'm doing the maneuvers. And this in combination with an understanding of magnets to fix polarization, specific points, acupressure points, putting all of this together in the formation with what kind of crystals we can do with tapping, etc. It is its own complete unique way of being able to do what I consider free medicine because, okay, the cost of the magnets and pretty much everything else is free. Once you learn the skill set, you can do that for free. on yourself, or you can include that in your practice. And so for clients or for those that don't have the money for all the things, those are some of the tools. And sometimes for people who are sensitive, that literally is the tool they need. They can't do the other things. They can't use them. They don't have the proper ability to make use of them because they don't have the proper foundation, right? They can't even read the message. And that is the thing with polarization, is that if your charge is wrong, your gyroscope is wrong, your magnet is wrong, you attract the wrong things and you repel the wrong things. So the good and the bad, the north and the south, you can make that metaphorical exchange that is a problem. We're going to literally say pathogens, these should be repelled, but because our charge is, actually skewed, we're going to actually vortex them to us. So now you go try and kill these pathogens that are literally magnetized to you. That is going to be a hard process. It's going to be like trying to pull the magnet. Of course, there's going to be stress in trying to do that. So this will be the capstone for the advanced level. And then we get into level 3. So this is a very unique program. Level 3 is something that we created out of what I thought, based on just being a practitioner, was a much needed thing. And that is that, if you're new and you're getting started, again, we talked about there's no substitute for clinical experience, right? And this is that clinical experience. So this is hundreds, if not thousands by that time, worth of case studies that you can actually review, where if you're thinking, well, okay, this seems like this, but, this person complains of X, Y, Z. How do I know if, this is the mycoplasma, which is a specific type of pathogen, or if it's the babesia, which is another type of pathogen? They're both on the scan, let's say, and they both cause very similar symptoms. How do I know where to start? What's the hierarchy? How do I make this differentiation? We can show you a case where in one instance, it is the mycoplasma and how to tell, and another one, how to see that this is actually babesia and how to tell. Right? We can have 4 different cases with the same symptoms and show you 4 different root causes. So there is literally a database that serves as a residency, if you will, to go through and accumulate all the clinical type of knowledge that you would necessitate getting clients to see, and clients that would actually teach you those things, right? Because our clients or our patients are our best teachers. Difficult clients develop us, and many providers and practitioners will resist that because of the time commitment to that. They quite simply can't go and just get into a rabbit hole to go look for hours for something outside the box. Generally, the answer is, well, I just, I don't have anything else to offer you, right? And that's why it's important to become the participant and driver in your own journey, because yes, there is a finite limit of hours in the day, right? Even I don't get to spend all the time exactly that I would want to for people. But the reason why we're here and what we have now is because whenever I haven't had an answer that just came straight from the data that I was able to make a connection on, if it took me 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks to look for an answer, I did it because I wanted the answer, not just for the individual. I wanted it for myself. Okay. And so the benefits of what you're going to see in these case studies is all of these years, all of these hours, thousands of hours spent with research connecting the dots. And these are things that you can learn out the gate and already hit the practice running, knowing in the back of your mind, yeah, that's a connection that could be that, because that case showed that. Oh my goodness, this is on this client scan. And again, maybe you have data, you can go and you can research on the database to be able to see what exactly, might be some avenues or how that case was approached. Secondly, maybe for those of you who already do have some clinical practice, of course, everybody can benefit from new insight. What we do is unique. You can have access to the way we look at things. But more importantly, this is also going to be the opportunity to get help for those intensive cases. So practitioners ask other practitioners for insight. That's how we oftentimes are able to communicate, hey, yeah, I had a patient that had this, and this is something I saw. Now that's in the back of your mind, so that if you ever see that in your practice, you think, well, it could be that, et cetera. Again, pernicious anemia has been kind of a thing of mine because of the way that it's looked at erroneously, in my opinion, in the conventional medical establishment, and how I was able to get so many people to get a conventional diagnosis based on what the scans showed, and having them go ask for the proper blood work because their routine blood work was fine. But when I asked them based on our scans to go get specific types of blood work, that blood work came back flagged and they had pernicious anemia. These weren't people that were still sick and needing to detox from mold. They did not have any more killing left to do. In fact, that was the problem. They kept agitating the immune response and driving the destruction of the tissues, which was making their intrinsic factor, which is what you need to be able to develop the ability to use B12, down in the dumps. Okay. And so all that kind of benefit is still there for you to access these new modalities in the way that we look at things. And if there's still a hard case yet, there is the ability for myself or my team to be able to meet with you and to be able to help you with those cases. What I call, it cuts down the time of the root cause isolation. So if you want to be able to offer something and you're stuck at a standstill and not knowing what to do with a client or a patient, or even maybe this is your case, this is the opportunity to kind of keep coming back at it and say, well, what can you put here, on the table that I'm not seeing, without me having to be the one to put the time on the table. So it actually is a concierge service as well for those of you who are in practice. And believe me, that will save you so much time that you can spend instead to be present and have the right type of energy and disposition in a filled cup so that you can give to your clients, give to your family, give to yourself, as opposed to having to go and do all that yourself, because that is literally 20 hours job. I'm not kidding when I say that every single moment, living, breathing, like waking, I am researching, I am looking at things. And this is essentially the composition of what all that is. And so in level 3, we also have a bit of a different track. So if you just want to be able to enter the field and practice and get going, have the tools and know that you can do that, we have that level for you. If you want to go and you want to get the maximum advanced knowledge, be able to deal, with the more difficult cases, et cetera, that will actually be something that we have in level 2. But remember, in the level 1 experience, you're going to be going through your own case. So whatever questions come up in the way of needing to be answered to understand your case, we will do that too. So you may actually get a lot of that education in the first level experience, because we're going to have to pass through that to understand the full picture. So there is a forum for each and every one of these modules where you can go in and you can ask questions. As I say, it's not just something that is the opportunity for you to do, it is literally your homework. So you should be asking questions with me, with my team, with each other, because our fellow man is literally our best teacher. And so this is also in this last option, the ability where that if you want to kind of break beyond just being able to use the system, you want to be an innovator, you want to learn the back end of the technology, you want to learn how to write the system, so to speak, this is the track for you. If you're looking to be able to do that on that type of a level, you want to go to the highest, caliber in the field. At Root Cause Clinic, I've literally written algorithms. So being able to identify based on the wavelength amplification, which will make a sense to you if you get into module 2 of this course, we're able to actually see a value. Think of it as a tree ring, right? In tree rings, we can see the age of the tree based on that, right? The way that the rings are traveling. Energy travels very similarly. So we can go in and we can say and deduce based on how strong, right? How much energy away from the baseline that's showing up in your scan, we can actually see, when they're more or less in your age that happened. RCC was the first place to do this. It didn't exist anywhere else before. If anybody else is using this, it's literally my code, it's my algorithm that I wrote. That is so much more valuable to being able to pinpoint information than simply just saying, here's a scan and, you had trauma and you had depression and you have, self-worth issues and you have an issue with a female. You say that to an 80-year-old man, he's going to say, nope, Sherlock, right? Yeah, I'm 80 years old. I've had some heartbreak in my life. I've been depressed before, and women have definitely given me some problems, okay? It's not as valuable. But when you say to that gentleman, this is when you were 28 years old, and he has a tear in his eye when he wasn't even wanting to be there in the first place because his daughter made him do it. I can't tell you how many men over 70 would come to the clinic because their daughters made them do it, and then they leave with a whole new, they become obsessed with this too, okay? And they answer questions. They ask more questions than anybody. And then you see a tear come out of this man's eye because it reminds him of when he lost his wife to cancer and was a single father in his late 20s, never expecting that. You don't know this whole story behind this man and went on to have another wife and everything, but that scar never left him, right? And so, that was not something that we can make up. It's not something that we can, insert. And that right there gains the credibility of anybody who might be a skeptic, because they know that they don't exist on Google. They don't have a Facebook. How would you know this, right? Because the data knows. The data knows because the data is using physics. And physics is a universal tongue of everyone. It is a universal language. The language is frequency. It's not English. It's not Spanish. It's not Hindi. No, it's frequency. It's energy, right? And so this will allow you to go to that level too, if you're looking to do that. And by the way, that algorithm is something you benefit from either way. You don't have to understand the inner workings of it. It is a part of the root cause experience, but the cool thing is you'll be able to learn a little bit better kind of how to discern that and apply that if you go through this course. So let's just kind of recap here what this looks like. Where physics meets physiology, this is the course that we have right now. This allows you to exit with a certified biophysics practitioner certification. So you can enter into practicing bioenergetics. You can even use Root Cause Clinic's lab, all right? So if you have clients right now and you want to be able to do a nice affordable assessment where that we can get a scan, and maybe you still do functional blood work, maybe you do, other services, this is a great starting point to be able to kind of, again, isolate the root cause. What can you look at that's different that other providers don't have, because they're just continuing to look at GI maps, continuing to look at Great Plains, mold levels, et cetera. Again, it has a place in the perspective of things, but what do you do with that information? Okay, so I have this and I have that. Why, right? So you'll be able to be proficient to enter into the field once that you complete level 1. You can use the Root Cause Clinic laboratory. And you can do this whether it's just, again, for the family that you're looking to kind of be able to hone in on some difficult cases for yourself, your child, have access to the education to kind of start maybe working into the field. I know that a lot of moms in particular are changed by the experience. They see their child heal firsthand and they say, I would still like to be able to stay home with my children, but I love this. Like, it brings me life when I study these things and help other people. I want to do for that what was done for my child. And it can be something as much or as little as you want it to be, turned into your next livelihood, if you will, right? The second level here is going to allow you to do those more advanced studies that we talked about, and deal with the harder demographic of clients and or patients. And this is our advanced level. So this would allow you to be certified as an advanced certified biophysics practitioner. Off to the right is that virtual residency that we discussed, and this would actually earn a title of master. So at that point, if you were to go through all 3 of these levels, you could literally do exactly everything that I do. And what I mean by that is down to the engineering. You don't have to do the engineering, though, to get all the rest of the benefit, right? More is not more. You don't have to necessarily go to the end to get the benefits out of this. It really is just the continuum of where do you feel is appropriate to be in that stage of your development or that stage of your life. You may be fine with level 1. You may want to go to level 2. You may want to go all the way, right? That's up to you. Just another look at it here. So level 1, again, this is the course that we have now. Level 2 will be out later this year. And level 3 is going to also be education to the back-end technology. So for liability purposes, we have to be careful with the way that these reports are made, because if this is taken, let's say, to an emergency room and there's things written on there that are indicating cellular abnormalities, oncogenes, et cetera, stuff like that, we don't want this to be taken as though that we are practicing medicine. If you do have a license to practice medicine, then you can obviously make some different decisions, because if you have a license, you can empirically diagnose, which means that as your judgment or training as a doctor, that you can decide to do that. If you take tools into consideration, such as what we use, then you have every ability to do that. If you do not have such licensure, then you cannot use this to say an official diagnosis. Right. Many of you might already be familiar with the health coach hat that we would practice on if this is the certification that you're working in. However, it does not mean that these people will not have this validated. They will oftentimes have this validated in the blood work or in other testing once we tell them more specifically where to look in that particular blood work. And sometimes also it'll never be validated. And there's many reasons for that. Bioenergetic testing, for example, can be so great for people in the Lyme disease community, because the very nature of that pathogen is that it does not actually showcase itself, and it will morph into so many different forms. So if it has 6 different identities and you're testing for one, good luck trying to find it, right? If you have impaired detox pathways and you're not actually ejecting toxins out, then good luck with the urine PCR testing, because the very problem, the reason why you're sick is because it's in the body, not out of the body, right? And not to mention that if we're looking for antibodies based on some of the conventional testing, what if you have literally distorted the immune response and you don't have any more of what you need to make the right antibody? So you start making a second one that's like your second best option, right? Now we interpret that data and say, well, this antibody is supposed to mean this. So that's your problem. And really, it was just the body's second choice. It's not really what's happening. And then we go treat that, and then we end up with the cascade of problems there. So there's many reasons why that things show up in blood work or don't show up in blood work, or show up in blood work and can literally be misleading, especially with immune system issues. So just another look here. Understanding and taking action is what you'll be able to accomplish in level 1. The more advanced action is for level 2. And then if you want to take the clinical practice to that innovative and engineering standpoint, learn the technology, all of that, that would be level 3. That's also where that you have the practitioner support as well. Mind you, again, if you're going to be in level 1, we have our forums in our chat. So whatever questions that we need to accomplish to get you to understand the process, you have that access there too. Our Facebook community, I just jumped ahead there, but that's essentially what that is. And as an example, we have right now the ground up that's building. So once this does fill up, there's only so much space to go around, right? So there is going to be an exclusivity to this. Just the same way that the people who were my first patients, they're still on my roster, right? They're still my patients. But I haven't taken new patients or clients on for like 3 years, I think, or something. So, this is that kind of first primordial type of access. And in fact, with level 1, you not only get your test kit, but those 50 tests that we're going to go through, 50 tests that you can look through and actually see the whole process and the continuum and make so many connections that alone is going to be hours and hours and hours of additional training that, there's just no substitute for, because when you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for somebody, the connection processes, like I said, they come up so much more rapidly. We're going to be there to assist you with all of that. Here's an example of what one of those add-on scans, or here's actually the root cause roadmap, but we will have the root cause scan and then scans very similar to this for each system of the body that will be coming up. And there will be 50 of those uploaded into your client portal. The scans alone for the additional scans are $50 each. So when you work with the root cause clinic provider, they will run these on the back end, again, with our back engineering. And we don't charge a client for that because we're just looking to solve the riddle for you, right? So we'll do what we need to do, but we don't typically upload any of those client copies into your dashboard. So this is the opportunity to see that and then some. Here are the workbooks. So there will be handbooks, like I said, to go with each different module. And in doing that, you're going to apply. So module 1, for example, we're going to literally look and line up what came up that what's my symptoms, what came up to validate that, what came up that's different, that isn't something that was on my radar, what of it that makes sense to me, what of it doesn't, and really kind of stagger those down until we come back and we say, wow, okay, I have a skin rash. Skin did not come up whatsoever in here, but my kidneys did. Whoa. What might that mean, right? We talked about kidneys in Chinese medicine. Kidneys control the fluids of the body. And we're wondering why we have dry skin, cracked skin, rashes, and irritation and heat. And now we have a starting point, right? We didn't just let that jump in our head, but we're going to show that process to you. You're going to do it for yourself. The second level will also have the module workbooks to kind of go through, especially in lining up things like, the meridian system. Something as simple as like reflexology. I'll give you an example. I hit my tendon of my toe in the pool last year, and it was like 6-7 months and it still was this bruise. I really bruised it really bad. It was not going away, right? And I started taking a hypothalamus stem cell activator because I wanted to support the hypothalamus with all of the burn the candle stress, right? And I started noticing that this was going away. And then I thought, that's interesting because that's the only thing new that I did differently. I went and I checked the reflexology chart, and sure enough, that area that I had bruised my tendon was correlated to the hypothalamus. So then I started taking these things for the hypothalamus, and I also helped that area. The module 2 is going to open up all those kind of connections for you, right? As well as, again, chakra system and meridian system and all of that. That's where we actually go through the Chinese medicine scan. Module 3, we're going to go through all of the additional scans. And module 4, we deep dive and break down your emotional scan. You will be an expert in being able to read that once that you're done with that module. There's also a couple textbooks that are included as well. If you are international, you do have to pay for the shipping for that, and there may be custom fees. So that will be something that if you're international will be different, but we will ship those to you if you are domestic, and that will be included in the actual course. Essential oils, you are also going to be gifted essential oils as part of this. You'll see Blue Lotus here, that is one of them, but there's several others that are meant to help with the emotional trauma release, with some of the work that we're doing to move the elements in the body, and all the other things that we'll be learning, and even just to help you learn as well. This is the founding members opportunity. So we had put out, for those of you who might have already seen an email with this offer, there is a, reduced opportunity. There is a reduced price opportunity at this time for the first individuals. I don't know how many spots are left. Maybe Dana knows, but we did put 15 out there. So once those first ones are gone, then you will still have everything that we've described today as far as the experience, but this particular experience is a little bit more of a shoulder-to-shoulder mentorship with me. So I will be meeting with you to be able to go through all of your learnings. Let's say once that you've been through module 2 and you're kind of sizing up your case and you're kind of wanting to see if you're on the right track, that would be kind of almost like part consult, but also part mentorship, because the idea is that I'm developing you. I want you to take away the most information possible, and I will step in to help develop and cultivate and germinate that seed. But that's what the idea is here, is it's develop you to see it yourself, right? And so there will be the 15 spots that I have for the private one-on-one mentorship there. The current price that we are listing this at is $32.95, and this price will be valid until Sunday at midnight, upon which it's going to go up to $54.95, and we will not put this ever again on any type of a discount. This is years and years and years of work that is put together. It is encompassing agricultural science, anatomy and physiology, naturopathic medicine, integrative approaches, mechanistic model, quantum model, you name it, all of it, right? Even from philosophy to psychology, really. So there's something in this course for everybody. And the practical takeaway is that you can enter practice if that is your goal. You will be proficient to do that. Learning, however, is a journey. And so to continue adding to that, the options will be there as well. So if that is something that you want to do and to develop yourself in the field, know that this is not just the first stop. There's going to be more ways that you can expand yourself. With that said, let me get in the chat. I'm not sure if I have another slide after this. Yes, I do. Let's go with this and then I'll get in the chat. So there was a lot of volunteers yesterday to be the volunteer to have me go through and dissect your case. I am actually going to pick one of the founding members. So for those of you who have signed up already, I will be picking from one of you who wanted to, of course, volunteer for that, to go through, and we will literally have an event where I'll go through and I will deep dive and tear that case apart and show you exactly what we do. And it will be one moment after the other of aha moments. So you can see how it's done firsthand. You'll see here that we have the key in between these two phi that have come together. And, you know, even this logo itself really warrants being talked about. It is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant logo. You know, Deanna actually came up with this logo and didn't even realize how divinely inspired it was, because by putting these two together, you can see that this quite literally puts itself into the shape of what looks like a heart, right? But the true physics of this actually is that with these opposing spirals creates this torsion, right? That torsion creates that vortex, and that vortex is what we know as the force of life. And so it wasn't even planned to necessarily be that way, but it came out that way. I think that's pretty cool. You'll learn in this course as well that that particular type of torsion or life force energy that emits from what is called a scalar field or a standing wave, that light is actually a product and continuum of that. Light is not its own thing. So hence you see the light waves that are exiting. In reality, what we see is two photons come out of this wave on each side, and you could literally quite say that is us exiting source singularity into duality. Light illuminates that separation. Those are the kind of cool conversations that we have, those really deep and profound ones. But it's not just philosophy, it's actually, it's physics. We back that up, because once that you have philosophy that has been studied and understood and it can be applied, and then it is physics, right? But all things first start is philosophy, right? Let's look at the chat and let's answer some questions. I think I just want to make sure I went through the whole PowerPoint. Question, yes, we are there. So let's go through and answer. Okay. We have 3 hours a week currently of OT and during school hours as well. It just isn't making the difference I'd like to see. This is where I know RCC, we will find the answer. Yes, because the reason why in my own personal journey, right? Maybe my own personal journey will help here. I'll give just a couple minutes so you can understand. So I went through my things, right? And I talked a little bit about that just very briefly in the first day of the summit. I had diabetes by my early 20s. I had acne, and I'm talking like very terrible cystic acne. I worked a third job at that time in college just to pay my bills to see a dermatologist to cut acne out of my face every Friday. and leave the office like Freddy Krueger. So I wouldn't scar because I had cysts that were so deep and so hard, they would take months, if ever, to go away. And so that was painful for me, as much as that, that's considered a vanity issue. And I wasn't able to fix that problem. I even went to one of the best endocrinologists in the world, like literally a guy with 4 PhDs, in charge of UCLA Medical Center, MD, et cetera. He took appointments once every Thursday for like 4 patients, and you had like a year more to wait. I went there because I had actually had alopecia at that point too. And he told me, like, you're in my office for this. Are you kidding me? Like, I have patients that fly all the way around the world to see me for very rare, endocrine disorders. Like, you could live without your hair. And he was right. I could live without my hair. And would I rather lose my hair or have cancer? I mean, yeah, obviously, right? We understand. But does that make my concern any less valid? Does that make me want to solve it any less? No. And so when I walked out that door after having almost 20 years ago or 15 years ago, however long this was now, having paid $700 for that visit 20 years ago as a college student, imagine, right? The finances there, walking out and feeling crushed, feeling like no one's going to help me, right? Whether that they want to help me, can help me, don't, whatever the reason is, like, I have abolished that will solve my answer for me. Like, I have to, if I'm going to find an answer, like, I have to find it. And that's what put me on the course to looking for these answers and connecting the dots. And I just used the powers that I had at that time, which was, let me look at this as I would with my scientist background. I wasn't a doctor then. I studied what was happening to me. I researched and I learned and I tried to connect dots. And finally, I was able to do it. I was able to do things that they told me that, they weren't able to do, right? And it kind of confused me. It left me feeling like, did I get lucky or what happened here? Because like, these guys couldn't do it and I did it. Like, I can't possibly be so good that I did it, right? Like, thank you, God, that like this miraculously went away. But then the other things would happen. And then I would do the same thing. And I would start saying all this stuff that, is supposedly nothing you can do about it. Like, I'm doing stuff about it. It's pretty cool. I have conversations with people. And just like you, that narrative led me to my tribe, my vibe. And I started interacting with other people and helping them. And they were having good results. And so finally I said, hey, I want to do this thing. I went to naturopathic college. And then from there, I said, I'm going to marry all of this together. I want to have my background of the way I look at the picture of man in the whole scheme of things, and how I look at, physics as the true animator, but yet the anatomy and physiology experience is also important. But at the end of the day, there's only so many hours that myself or a provider can pour into you. And like I said, there's going to be those things that are going to come up that is your intuition. And you may not act on that in the appointment because you may think, well, that sounds kind of ridiculous to say. It could be that simple fact of, yeah, I had that bulimic episode in high school, but probably doesn't have anything to do with why I have this problem now that I'm 30 years old, right? And all those things are avenues and windows you can go down to be able to, as great as your desire is, extract that, because there's a system that can help you do it. I can't promise you that that's going to be a short solution, but if you continue to keep going at it, you will find the solution in going through that. You'll have the tools and the ability to be able to do that. I know you will, because there's been cases, even myself, where I said, God, like, what am I going to do for this person? Like, this person won't even let me give up on them, even if I wanted to, right? And they're committed, like, and they're showing up and they have not given up hope on themselves. And so it pushed me to do hundreds of hours of research. For the histamine resistance case, for example, that took a year of research, right? Looking at that client, looking at other clients, looking at all this and putting this together. And now this client gets their life back. And now bing, 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 all these other ones follow suit. But what went into that? What went into that for that one single thing, right? Now, everybody has different issues. And for me to be there to solve every single one of them, I don't have enough hours in the day, but I have the formula to show you how to do that. And so if you have the dedication and if you have the desire to do that, follow those steps and you can come to that solution. Some of you may be sooner, some of you may be later, but the power turns back to you rather than having to sit and to wait to be poured into, right? And that's why this has been so long to develop, because it was so hard to say, how do you preserve the bio-individuality portion of this, but make it a system that everybody can do? something that's efficient, because if you get burnt out, frustrated, and have no sense of direction and feel like you're guessing or throwing darts at the board again, then you're in no different situation than you were before. And at least you paid somebody to deal with that problem for you, right? Am I right? I didn't heal. I couldn't get help until I was the person that I was waiting for, right? Some of you may say, well, you had a background in science, you could understand all this and that. I knew about algae and geodesics and dirt and humic acid and a lot of other stuff that, yeah, I mean, I learned those things, but that's not the same as being the people that were supposed to know those things professionally and help me. And I did it, right? I did it. I've been through a lot of things. And at the time I thought, why am I going to have these obstacles? In fact, I took care of my grandmother for 5, almost 6 years. I was her caregiver for Alzheimer's. And she was given 6 months to live, right? My grandmother, because her ejection rate was like 19 or something. She lived almost another 6 years. My grandmother was a strong village woman, and she was not she was not going to let that be the end of her. Unfortunately, it was a cruel existence because her mind left her. And I got to witness every single step of that long goodbye. And after that experience, as you can imagine, as it was very emotionally hard, physically hard. If anybody has ever been a caregiver for somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, I don't even need to open my mouth. Like, you can only understand if you have done it, what it's like to be awake days in a row when somebody is sundowning, what it's like to have somebody ask you the same question for 8 hours in a row, 8 hours in a row, right? You try to have as much patience as you can. When somebody doesn't realize they had a stroke and can't walk and tries to get up out of their bed every single minute and keeps falling. The family that doesn't want to help but wants to come in and criticize about what you're not doing, right? And what you live on a daily basis that you're just too exhausted to even begin to try to make anybody else understand. I've been there, right? And after that experience, I thought, I'm going to get to start my life now. You know, I had my life on hold for 5 or 6 years. It's my time. And after that time was when I got the sickest I ever was in my entire life. That's when I got Lyme disease and I couldn't sit out of bed. And I thought to myself, wow, this is what I get. We're all humans. That's our first place to go, right? Is like, how did this behavior, where everybody, told me you're a saint and you're doing all this work and you're so amazing, land me with this outcome? Wow, really? Am I ever going to get my time? I felt like George Bailey. If you've ever watched It's a Wonderful Life, every time something comes up and he can't go to school, he can't travel the world, he can't do these things that he wanted to do. That's exactly what I felt like, right? And then that was the first time in my life that I said, everything else I found a way to kind of cover through that. Everything else I found some sort of way to compensate. And this was the first time that was not happening. I couldn't push hard enough to push through that. Like, I was pushed. I was forced to stop and to confront that. And it was hard because I had two choices. I had the choice of saying, wow, all those people that are upset, living in chronic pain, bitter people that I passed before in my life and thought, well, I mean, that sucks, but like, you don't have to choose to be that way, right? I said, oh, damn, I know how these people feel now. And I know why that they act the way they do. The choice was, am I going to become one of them? Because ultimately I said, well, if I'm going to have that fate, if that is what's going to happen for whatever reason that is happening for me, then it's going to happen, right? But if I acknowledge and give credence to that and my energy to that, then close the door. It's a done deal, right? But if I at least say, I'm going to throw what I can at this, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try to see, just like everything else in my life that was an obstacle, as an opportunity, that somehow, some way that this is exactly the same thing. And it's almost
sometimes. How you feeling? Good. We'll need to leave in about 25 minutes.
All right. And what that did for me is it changed the entire way that I look at life, right? And it made me realize that going forward, while that before I had chosen other people to try to fix the problem for me, and it didn't work. And so I, by default, went into trying to create solutions that wasn't just that I had to do that because I had to do that for that instant. That's actually the way life works. because I was able to get out of this and get my life back. I didn't learn until after that that's not the story for most people that go through Lyme disease. I did that by going through hours of research every single day to decide how I was going to approach this situation. And ultimately, that's what saved my life, because I avoided all of the things that many people might consider to be mistakes in how that we go about, dealing with Lyme disease. And so being in that driver's seat was both a terrifying experience, but also one of the most liberating, because getting through that, as much as that, of course, we all are human, we have our ambivalence about things. We're always going to have the ability to detect tension. That's literally life itself. It allowed me to go forth with the rest of my life and say, winter, no matter how bad it is, spring always comes. It always comes. I can get choked up talking about this stuff. All right, let me go back and look at the comments here. I hit my toe in physical therapy in the pole and damaged the tendon too. So I take something coordinated to the toe. So interesting. See where it is in reflexology, that you hit your toe where you have the bruise, and look and see what portion of the body that is correlated to, because maybe there's already a weakness there. And that's why you are not able to really improve that tissue or heal as you thought you should heal. Is there an email that went out already? Yes, there was. You have an undergrad degree in agriculture sciences from Cornell. Cornell is an exceptional agriculture school. What's funny is I got into Cornell University. I got into some pretty cool universities. UCLA didn't accept me, but Stanford and Cornell did. But I never went to them because I didn't have the money back then to do that. But that just goes to show you that you don't need to have a fancy smancy degree, because I have people that I went to high school with that got into Harvard, got into Yale, top of the class, and their parents had the ability to send them to go, which at that time was like $25,000 a year. Now I don't even know what it is, but it's like $60,000, $70,000 a year or something to go to these schools. And, at first I thought I can't be successful like them if I'm going to not go to those schools, right? I was already selling myself short from there. But at the end of the day, going through these obstacles, just as I said, and seeing that I could solve these problems that people that went to, MIT, people that went to UCLA weren't solving, it was time for me to believe in myself at that point and say, here's the evidence. Do I choose to believe it or not? I can do it, right? Love the logo, need t-shirts. I know, I want to put this logo on everything. So excited, just signed up. Yay, Patty. Jumped on this call late. As a practitioner, will I be able to order scans through RCC for clients? You will. Yes, you will. And guess what? Your training, you're going to be able to ask questions in that forum. So consider it a data pool that you can come back to again and again. Let's see. Do you think my nursing career will hinder or help me on this path? It will help you. And let me tell you why. Again, I can't stress enough that it really makes me sad whenever I see that there's these camps and divisions in the world. There's, let's hate all the medical doctors, let's hate all the nurses, let's hate everything to do with prescriptions. This is the only way over here. And then this camp, of course, tells us that we're all a bunch of crazies, that you could never react to a vaccine and all these other things, right? True life is harmony and true life is balance, right? So there are things in the medical establishment, like I said, that I am grateful for. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite out there condemning doctors when one day they may hold my life in the palm of their hand. I'm not going to do that, right? Because I won't reject surgery if that's the case. I won't reject a pharmaceutical if it's going to save my life. So I'm not going to sit here and condemn that. It's just that that's an incomplete model, right? But so is quantum medicine. Quantum medicine has, it's not as potent compared as the medicinal model in some cases, because if you are in a car wreck, at that point, I don't know again how much the biology of belief can help you. Perhaps it really can, but it's good to have both of those options because we are software and hardware, right? So we shouldn't be at ends with each other. And my goal is that a medical doctor could take this course and feel like that they could use this, evidence-based lens and approach and feel comfortable doing it, right? So it satisfies that circle, but it also opens and expands that circle for them. Because it shouldn't be a competition. We should complete each other. It shouldn't be one competing with the other. It should be completing each other. Having the background of the body, the anatomy and physiology, the understanding of just seeing pathology every day as a nurse and being the one on the front line, that is so valuable. I have a story where it was actually a nurse who saved somebody's life the other day because it was a young doctor who didn't want to run the D-dimer. right? And the nurse said, this guy doesn't look good. I don't think this 70-year-old man is having a panic attack. Like something's wrong. He doesn't look good. And she really pretty much forced that young doctor to do it. Guess what? That guy was ready to have an embolism. She saved somebody's life. So you don't have to have the MD to necessarily be able to be at the top of the echelon of representing the power or the potency of the medical establishment. It's just we know that that comes with some problems too, right? So we don't have to throw everything out. It's not all or nothing, right? We can take what we need that benefits us on this side. You're going to learn what you're going to learn on that other side from us. And so you're only going to be more dynamic in being able to make those connections together. You don't have to throw that life behind you to replace it with this. You add it, right? Even as we say in the good book, I didn't come to abolish my father's law. I came to fulfill it. It's both, right? A true answer is true everywhere. Am I the only one who can't hear now? Uh-oh. You all can hear me now, I hope. Yes, this is for modules 1 through 4. Our class is live. This is pre-recorded, so you can actually watch this on your own time. You can watch it as many times as you need to. And actually, as I talk about that, you know, the layers of learning work like that. So if you watch material and you're like, oh goodness, repeat. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you know how many times I may repeat particle physics to understand what exactly are these guys trying to say? And then after watching it 30 times, I'm like, so you were trying to say that? Why didn't you say so? Because you really made it a lot more complicated than it had to be, right? I have tried so hard to make sure that this is simple. And if you've noticed, I've really worked to find powerful pictures so that in that picture you may know, and you don't necessarily have to put it through 10 filters to try to think. Are there any payment plans? I would love to do this. Let's see. Deanna, did we answer that? Financing, yes. Okay, good. So we have the link in there for financing. Price does not include level 2 and level 3 right now. No, that is for level 1. Level 1 already is a massive amount of information. Most people put their courses out there, again, in the ballpark of $5,000, and they're giving you a couple hundred slides, right? And it's very generalized, again, kind of mass types of approaches, but it's a subject. It's not a system. They're giving you a subject and a set of rules or observations within that subject. But if you don't reflect that subject, then what, right? A system is different because a system allows you to be able to put data input in, and you have a formula that will yield an answer. It's not a memorization model. It's a formula. You run the information through it and you get an answer. And that answer might be different for you, than for Julie, than for Deanna. And that's how we're actually able to get results in different people, right? With different problems. Yes, both of those will launch this year, level 2 and level 3. So for those of you like me that you're just the like, I can't sit and read one chapter. I have to, you know, read them all. You'll be able to get your addiction satisfied. Taylor says that I am a genius. Your work is truly amazing. Thank you very much. I don't take those kind of compliments lightly. It's honestly, it's a privilege. It is a privilege to be able to spend my life the way that I do. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the problems that I did. So all the acne that I had, the days not getting out of bed, my hair falling out, and diabetes, and thinking, geez, I can't have even 3 sips of acai juice, like, and these people are slugging, you know, Slurpees, and like their skin looks great. Like, what's my problem? Why is it so hard for me? Like, why can't I do things, right? But because I couldn't do things like that, I learned how to do, and I was made to do other things. And it's not so bad. Deanna says that she's edited this course for the platform. I've had my own moments of crying and epiphanies. Blessed to be learning too. We have some pretty powerful moments in the course. Absolutely. For those of you too of faith, it's my goal that you would look at this course. And when you see how intricate all of this is, and when you see the theory of everything, when you see all the way from cosmology down to the single cell, as I said, the scale of the ether, down to anatomy, and you see how there is a consistency and a continuum and how everything checks out, I do not doubt for a moment that such education and understanding in physics or energy medicine, where physics' very nature is to disprove God, you will never be closer to your alpha and omega than in the theory of the anatomical aether. We are presenting an entire new model here. This is a trademark, and this is something that is a whole new wave. It is not Newtonian or mechanistic. It is not even quantum. So for people out there pushing the quantum model, that's actually yesterday now. There's a new model that puts that all together, and that's the first time that we're going to see this in this course. I don't know anybody else who's published this concept so far that I'm about to drop in this course. You'll be the first to see it. So if you're looking to be beyond bioenergetics at this point, this is the movement. Let's see, is there any other form of payment other than whole payment? We think we've talked about that. Would you be able to tell me if I am the first 15? That I have no idea. Deanna might be able to check in on that. I know that slots were already fulfilled this morning. I don't remember how many. But actually, yeah, I have no idea. So Deanna will have to check on that for you. Would a payment plan also be available to those outside the US? I think Deanna has answered that. Is this an appropriate direction for someone like me who is not necessarily interested in the practitioner path, more so in very invested in solving my own health puzzle? Yes, absolutely. Even for those of you who may already find yourself as a client of RCC, or your family is seeing RCC and you love the information you get, but like we said, we don't have, we could make a single hour appointment 10 hours. You know that there's enough data to keep going through it, right? But if you were given the system to be able to do that, this allows you to kind of become that person for yourself. And so if you see that as an investment in getting the system, then you can use our laboratory, and this actually is putting that information in a way that you can control costs a lot more as well. Thank you. You were right. I signed up for level 1 with the hopes to learn and heal my son. And, gosh. Christine, that's why we created this course. That is why we created this course, because it's the love of a mom who will stop at nothing for her child. Nobody will love your child and look for those answers. Nobody will stop to give up on their child the way a mother will. We love you as our clients of RCC, and we want to do the world for you. But there are only so many hours in a day. I wish there was 1,000. Because it's never do I wake up in the morning and say, God, I have to do this. I can't wait to wake up and do what I do. But every night when the hours run out, I'm frustrated because there's not enough in the day to do exactly what I want to do in the way I want to do it. The only solution is to give people the ability to do that for themselves. And that's what we're hoping here, is what we're able to do. So a comment like that brings it full circle for all of us. And I know Deanna's probably crying too. I usually don't cry. I'm a person that loves meaning and purpose, of course, but that's generally not my expressive motive. But, that's just the truth, right? We have one spot left. Oh my goodness. Geez. Melissa says she used to work with dementia patients before becoming disabled and now living with her father who has early signs of dementia. You understand it. Absolutely. Goodness, I feel such a strong call. I have been studying myself, taking biogeometry courses, light panels, etc. But have to discuss with your husband. Biogeometry is amazing. I lost weight just doing biogeometry. I lost inflammation, and I'm still burning the candle until we get the rest of this course out by the end of this month. But yeah, biogeometry is one of the most powerful things I have ever tried. Hence why that we're putting it in the course. How do you sign up for a founding member? I believe you just complete checkout, and it's just a matter of who are the first 15 people to sign up. And I'm not quite sure if it tells you that in the email or not. Deanna would know, or how to decipher. Would this be a good course for someone wanting to eventually own their own Quest machine? You can definitely take this course. And if you want to go into being able to do the engineering. Yes, the top of the category, being able to come to the top level that we had and we showed in that pyramid. You could become not just somebody who's proficient in being able to practice with the system, you'll be able to actually engineer your own system. That would be the goal for those people that want to be movers and shakers in the field and want to be able to say, hey, I love this system, but guess what? I got a little brain and a little mind, and I had this unique experience that maybe I didn't see here, and I can create too. So that allows you to become the creator. Nikki says, holy cow, I just signed up. I'm a pharmacist and I'm finally doing what I feel like I meant to do. I've been an RCC client for almost 2 years. You know, in the future, everybody, by next year, it's my goal that actually, and we have several people that work in their fields, chiropractors, pharmacists, physical therapists, medical doctors, you know, to be able to partner and to team up with them and to provide specific courses to those people as well, meaning, you know, chiropractor looks at the body through a certain lens. How could we give them this training, which they would still benefit from everything that is in this course of training, but specific to the chiropractor skill set? How do they apply this in, you know, the types of problems or patient demographics that they see? Pharmacists, you know, understanding when we're seeing that there's a reaction here and chemistry told you that's not possible, like maybe it is possible, just not in chemistry, right? And so that's kind of our hope too, is that, you know, education is never ending, and being able to understand is how we're able to come together. And that's why that in having empathy or understanding, right, we become one with that person. And when we have that compassion, we become one with the solution, right? And that's why it's so important to be able to understand, because in understanding comes the I into the we, it comes a whole in that way. And I wish that there was just more of a mindset to embrace that, because everybody's in their own camp. I don't know about all of you, but I am so sick of the take this and this is going to kill you and don't have this and this had a little molecule of this and this and throw this away and throw that away and get this. And I mean, who can live like this, right? I mean, I get it. You have to do what you have to do, but this shouldn't be a controlling experience. Our great grandfathers didn't have a Whole Foods and have to avoid 70 different foods. So something's wrong with the model that we're living in, right? The last 3 years particularly have been just terrible for humanity. I mean, we've all been turned to turn on each other, essentially. There's no sunshine, you know, in our hearts. That's the model that I want us to return to. If you look at things through this lens, you will look at it and it will open you up to just a way of life and experiencing life that is just, you're never going to come back from it. Life will still throw things that are hard at you, but the way that you will see things from this point forward on this course, I guarantee will change your life. Not because that it's me that, you know, created something amazing, or that, you know, what we have at Root Cause Clinic in itself is the answer, is because you're going to see something that makes sense and that you're a part of that something that makes sense. And in doing that, there's just a certain type of faith and security that we have in just understanding that it's not some big primordial soup accident mishmash, right? Like they have you believe. If there is no creator, then every single coincidence of creation for all of these eons of years has been a series of accidents. That math to show that that's a statistical probability doesn't even exist. It is a statistical impossibility to consider the math in that regard. And here we are in physics trying to prove that there is no creational design, there is no alpha, there is no omega. You're going to meet the alpha and the omega straight in the face in ways that you've never thought before. Amen. Allopathy saved my life after a hit and run accident. Exactly. You know, I can't condemn people that may save my life one day, right? Nobody is a full, perfect being. They may have a different opinion from me about things. Even then, do I have to hate them for that? No, I don't. They have a different experience in life than I do. That's okay, right? They will come in the continuum whenever that they're ready, just as I may fall into a portion of the continuum when I'm ready. We don't have to hate each other just because that we have differences from one another, right? Signed up this morning. I can't wait to have you all. Wow, I wonder if we've already went through all these spots. Robin, I'm so excited to dive deep into all of my scans and have some serious aha moments, save you all of those extra hours of research. Rob and I have learned from your case as well. I won't go into dishing on your case personally here with everybody. You can talk about your stuff if you'd like to, but some of the success that we've seen with your son and, some of the things that are allegedly, again, hardwired and you can't change, we're told that something's congenital and that this will just be the way that it is. But then we see, wow, okay, well, that can change, right? Because when you take a software point of view into the mix, then, we create a different code. We create a different way that the hardware runs, right? Both of them matter though, because some of those hardwired genes absolutely produce hardwired results. We learn literally about what portion of physics we can control and what portion is under, if you will, God's control. Literally on that wave, there is the electric portion of the wave and there is the magnetic portion of the wave, right? You've probably heard of electromagnetism. The electric is the action portion, right? If you want to, you could even say that that would be the yang or the male portion. The reaction, the magnetic, is the reactive. That is the yin. That is, if you will, the female. But if you were to really look at that, you could say action as a humanity, the humanity as an action potential is what we do. What we do absolutely affects our outcome. The mindset we have, the feelings we have, the choices we make, absolutely, we are powerful and control our life. But do we really control it all? No, because that action that we do and that reaction that comes back, nature gets the last say on that. God, if you will, gets the last say on that. And that's why it's important, because sometimes when we go too far into either spectrum, I definitely believe in the merits of things like German new medicine, but as I said, can I look a mom in the face and say, you have given your child leukemia because of your emotional conflicts that you won't solve. Try harder. You're not trying hard enough. Geez. Ouch. Wow. That doesn't make sense to me in a model of intelligent design that it would work like that way exactly, right? We create, but we were part of the creation. Don't get it twisted. So there's a lot we can do, but that doesn't mean that we are the doer. We are the manifestation of that being done. We are the witnesses. We are the testimony to it. For those of you who are of faith, where 3 or more are gathered, why is this something that works? It works because that provides the witness. It provides the testimony. In the double split experiment, you'll learn in this course that reality doesn't exist until we watch it. It remains in a wave state. When you look at light, then it particleizes and you see it, right? Conscious observation allows it to exist. So even when people are laying hands, even when people are doing energy medicine, they aren't doing it. Did they create the rules of the alpha and the omega? Does this come out of their fingertips and do they have this power? Or is this power being manifested through them and they are experiencing energy? There is a difference between energy being something that is generated versus experienced. We'll talk about that in the course and why it's important to understand the difference, because as human beings, when we're told we can control X, Y, Z, and we feel like we're not seeing the evidence that we can, maybe it's not that you're not trying hard enough. Maybe there's more to that story. Maybe we've got it twisted. So excited to deep dive. Christine, thank you. Holy cow, I just signed up. A million what we do for live. Where do we check direct messages on? Where do you check direct messages on Zoom? I have not checked any direct messages on here. Dan is handling the chat portion. So if you have sent a message, I'm sure she will try to get back to you. I'll say the course costs. What other expenses would I need to anticipate? Nothing. The books are included. You're even getting hundreds of dollars of oils included, which will help you with the emotional release, with memory retention, with brainwave states. We have the handbooks included for you. The testing is included for you. All of the additional testing is included for you. The forum, whatever use you want to make of that, whatever questions you want to ask on there, that's included. Everything is included. So you shouldn't really need to have any expenses unless that you are outside of the domestic United States, because then you will have to pay for the shipping and customs that we can't control. As far as the textbooks and what they may want to charge you to get them shipped from the United States. I know Her late Majesty, the Queen's VAT tax in the UK makes things quite difficult. I have no training, but I'm looking for my next step. Would this be a fit for a total newbie? Yes, it would, because I am teaching in this course the status quo only so you can evolve from that status quo and see what is the quantum quo. And then what is beyond that quantum quo? Because true learning, I can't just tell you this is how it is. Here's the end product of all the cool stuff that I've learned and put together, right? And then have you really truly appreciate that or get the context of that if you don't have the reference point of the before, the middle, and the end to really make sense of that, right? So we have to teach you the rules and what they say and how light and sound work and health and all of that, only to show you the evidence against it by the very same establishments, right? You can go look on Department of Energy and they're saying one thing about physics, and then they just published billions of dollars of research that, well, actually they didn't publish it. They did the research, but they don't publish it because they don't want the publicity for that. These are all the kind of studies that I have put through on this platform. I have went through the private archives of all the Ivy League schools, Stanford, UCLA, MIT, Caltech, not like what's published on Google, like what's in the student forums. What has the thesis been published on that doesn't have publicity? Where are there professors of subtle energy, which you never knew existed, that there's literal professors of subtle energy, PhDs in Stanford University, no less, that are producing the evidence to say, yeah, we don't have the tools quite necessarily to measure subtle energy the way we do airplanes, but we measure indirect effects. There's something there, but they don't want to publish that. I mean, they publish it, but they don't give it the publicity. We go through all of that. And so that's why it was important for me to create a course that anybody would feel comfortable being able to bring in any circle. Again, people want to have a closed mind. You won't open it for them. They only can walk that journey and be the driver for themselves. But you will be equipped with this information to know when you speak in a circle that this is not something that can come back to blow up in your face and be disproven, because I have taken the time to do that for you. As opposed to other things that you may hear on Instagram or with other parties that they tell you cool sounding stuff, but they're not really understanding the context of that. And so you go take that information and then boom, you get hit from the physicist, the engineer, and everybody else, the medical doctors that tear you down, right? Well, I don't shy away from those situations or those confrontations. And in fact, I don't really get attacked on my Instagram much at all, because the way that I put that information out to begin with is already the mic drop that leaves nobody able to speak. Okay. Not because I'm awesome, not because I'm cool, but because I've taken the time to say, this is your standard. Harvard's your standard. They're an authority. Stanford's an authority. UCLA is an authority. Okay. You don't believe in this stuff, right? We're crazy, right? Okay. UCLA says and that it actually does exist. And here's the picture. So what do you believe now? Am I still crazy? Because according to the own standards that you have just set for me, you have said that this is the way that we should measure, and this is the measurement standing before you. So do you change your mind, or are you still committed to the first narrative? And then it's as simple as that. Usually, if this is an Instagram fight, they block you and they run away, which is better off for your life. So yes, we're able to take you in from the ground up. And the reason being is that the anatomy and physiology is incorporated into this, and you can really go as deep into that in the traditional anatomy and physiology as you want, or go more straight, jump into the quantum if you already have that anatomy and physiology background. For example, if you are a nurse, you know anatomy and physiology, you probably don't want to necessarily have to spend tons of time in that book. You may say, whatever, I'll refresh myself, but you can probably deep dive more into the lecture right there. If you have no background in training, you're going to want to make sure you read all of the traditional anatomy and physiology, and you're going to be taking the time in the quantum. You're going to learn side by side each of those systems, right? Because you don't have that reference point. Too many people that are getting certified in any type of energy medicine studies, and I've never seen anything comprehensive that brings the physics, anatomy and physiology, the emotional medicine, and give a system. I know of, universities out there that sell energy medicine criteria, but what they're getting is like 5 and 10 times more, and what they're delivering is like 10 times less. And on top of that, they don't have any connection to the hardware. So we study software theory, but then we don't know about the human body. You have to know about the human body from that hardware standpoint to understand how it integrates into the software. Software runs the hardware, so you got to know your hardware too. And that was a very sore component missing in many programs, functional, nutritional, and otherwise. How can you know about digestion if you don't know the parts, right? The processes. Not just, this does this because I said it does this. Like, you have to have the context and the framework to know that yourself. If we can't access your clinic, what tech is available to use at home? It depends what you need help with, but overall, some really good things to have in house would be infrared, any type of PEMF or pulse electromagnetic field therapies. Some of those are mats that you can lay on. Microcurrent, especially for those of you with issues in the tissues. One of my favorite devices is a Quasar MD. It's a red light with infrared and amber wavelength. That's good for inflammation from whether you have a, jaw issue all the way into anti-aging, etc. Are the 15 spots filled? I have no idea at this point. Deanna might know, although she's busy answering all of you guys too, so she may not have been able to see that yet. Thank you, Veronica. Your passion is inspiring. So excited to have the opportunity. I've committed to this course, let's say 1 hour a day for 5 days. How long would it take to finish level 1? This will take a handful of months. Lectures range anywhere from 40 minutes to well over an hour. Mind you, that's just a lecture. There's reading to do as well. There are lab segments that go with each of these, and those lab segments may be as short as 10 minutes or as much as well over an hour as well. And then there's the time in the forum that you're going to spend communicating with each other. So there is an extensive amount of hours for this. Some material you may move through faster than others. It really just depends how you're wired to learn, what clicks faster. The way it tends to work is things can kind of maybe be a little congested at first, and you find yourself replaying this and learning this and going through this. And then it's usually one big aha moment. There'll be one picture, one thing that I bring together that you'll see, and you'll see all those answers as one, and you'll realize it, you'll get it. That's the moment that I'm looking for with this course, is the get it moment. Memorizing will not serve you. Memorizing does not serve to create the mathematician, right? You don't get the relationship between that. You just are memorizing a solution. So you'd have to memorize all the solutions possible for every person in the world, and that's not possible, right? And so in being able to do it that way, it's my hope that you have the outlook, literally the blinders come off, and you have a new lens. And that new lens is the way that you will view the world from there on out. Once you do, it all makes sense. Is today's release for all 3 levels? Today is for just level 1. Quantum physics helped you find God. Absolutely. And in fact, if you look at some of the great physicists throughout time, it's funny because they're, supposed to be in a science that's really about disproving God. And many of them were actually very much people of belief, deep belief in a higher power, from Tesla to Planck, to Heisenberg. Many of them held deeply that they met their alpha and omega at the end of their journey. Thank you so much. Veronica, we love you. I'm the same for me and my son, because I will never give up. Mother will stop at nothing. Mother will sacrifice her life, right? I mean, across every medium. It's not a human mom thing. I mean, I have my pet squirrel, Pom Pom, who has her pups. Her babies are now finally getting out there in the real world, on my roof, on my terrace. And there was a squirrel that came to steal the nuts that I give them, right? Pom Pom was probably half the size of this squirrel. She's got 3 babies. Pom Pom kicked the beep out of this squirrel that was bigger than her, right? Because it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog, right? There is no power. Like they say, a woman scorned. What about a mom with a mission, right? It's mom with missions who have changed the world. Thank you. Thank you. You are so kind. Thank you. Amen. Amen. So touching. We feel that from you. The heart and the mind are one. You know why I am here. Love you guys. Blessings to all the amazing souls at RCC. Benjo, absolutely. Dr. V is all the emotional healing sessions breaking you open. Is that biogeometry work? Yes. Literally the biogeometry work that I've been doing just personally on myself on a personal note. I know we've went well over, but well, for whoever still wants to be here, you can be here to hear all the things we have to say. If not, you can catch our Facebook recording, right? But the work I have personally been doing on myself as a personal evolution has been to work on letting go of attachment to any resentments, to step in other people's shoes, and to think not from the feeling of having been accosted, right? Of like, this person did this to me, because everybody's going to do something to you, right? And I would not want to be judged for things which I did not do with an intention to hurt somebody that maybe did still hurt them. I don't have all the answers, right? So how can I expect that of others? If I want grace, if I want benevolence, I have to give that. But that's hard because we have that literally imprinted into the tissues, right? emotions that we don't allow to come out, you saw the proof of how that literally crystallizes in the body, right? That will crystallize in the tissues, and instead it will have a silent scream. And while that we don't let that out for many reasons, and I'm not saying go butt crazy and scream at everybody, people. We learn about that in the course as far as there's a thing about energy transfer and energy transformation. Transfer is I'm upset, get this anger out of me, scream at you. What did I do? I gave you my anger. That's not exactly a good thing. There's a better way. We can transform that anger into love, and yet, dare I say, happiness. Anger is energy. You saw that black rice, right? There's energy there. Not the kind we want, but there's energy. But if you don't have any energy, you ignore it, you crystallize it, you saw what happens. It extinguishes it, right? We want to take that negative energy and we want to have just enough of that balance to give rise to that good energy so that they live in harmony with each other. The personal work I've done has been to let go of attachment to me having my definition of an outcome equal that approval, right? Meeting people where they're at. Releasing myself, it doesn't mean that I don't have or demand respect or that I put up with things that I shouldn't, but it's a new way of approaching that situation. And when I literally do the work in the biogeometry movements, I will feel the burning in my organs as that this is happening, being released from me. It's pretty powerful stuff, okay? In doing that, I have not only shown that I am lighter in my ethereal body and how I feel, but I have legit lost 12 pounds doing this, okay? I'm not on an exercise program, I guarantee you. I would like to, I'm so busy doing what we do that I dream of running, okay? And I have not been able to do that. So when we're congested metabolically, when we're congested in these other areas, to do the software work at the deepest life force level has changed the physical, right? And now I'm still burning the candle in the same way, but I'm not seeing those effects the way that I saw before, right? And it wasn't the physics that was the reason why. It wasn't too much, food or lack of sleep or this or that, because I'm still doing that to a certain degree, but I'm getting a different outcome. And so the biogeometry is very powerful stuff for the emotional release, to literally, as far as when you get this information about your emotional scans and what to make of it, what to do, like, how do you freaking get this out the body is the question, right? You watch everybody on Instagram and they're like, and you do this and you do that, tap here and do that. And maybe sometimes that might work because you're just doing that. And again, you're getting lucky in that little spot that you had a problem in the way that might be, a problem and a solution. But if you don't understand the web or the why, it kind of also can't work either, because you have to be present and cognizant and conscious of all of that for it to override that imprint, right? Been praying and waiting for my next steps. Patty. Veronica, does the 3250 cover all 3 levels? It does not cover all 3 levels. This is level 1. Can you speak more to what you meant by saving costs in the future after taking the course? Do we have different pricing for future scans, etc.? There will be, let me see if Dan said, yes. Yes, Dan already answered that. Yeah, so there will be the ability to use this as a practitioner at that point, which means practitioner pricing. And so that would really, honestly, if you become the person that's steering your own ship, then you would technically become your own provider. You'd become, the practitioner pricing. You would be cutting all that out of your price model. As far as what you spend on RCC, you would be able to translate that to your own practice that you're now able to do. And you're amazing. Thank you for all you do. Super grateful. If we can't visit your clinics, how can we experience? Oh, I think it's showing me some of the same stuff. Let's see. How do we cover the extra costs? Also purchased 12 weeks with RCC in December. So can I have the free scan included for my son? I'm sure that if you want to use that for your son, I mean, if you just purchased this course, then yeah, I was completely fine with, the moms, like we said, coming to heal your son. So use the data set for your son. Let's go on a deep dive for him. Deanna is doing an amazing job monitoring chat. Yes, she does. Deanna is amazing. I call her do it yourself Deanna, because Deanna will find a way, no matter what it is. She will find a way, an answer, and a solution. All right, what if we are in the middle of an 8-week protocol? Would using this test kit included be beneficial or redundant? And can we use it as at a different time? So you have two approaches here. You can work off of your first set of data, if it's very recent, and you can save the second kit for later. Or we can use this new set of data. See me for kind of where we have to see how far away that data has been and your unique circumstances to give you a little bit more insight. As Deanna said, she already read my mind. Me too, just spoke to my child about detachment today, this morning. We have to become whole again. Becoming whole is using our left and our right brain, using our heart and our mind, not separately, but together, right? We will be doing work in Tulum. Yes, it's another thing too for anybody that wants to do the retreat. And anybody too that maybe they only want the emotional portion of this. We actually are teaching module 4 of this course in the retreat. So all the emotional section that we're going to be teaching in Physics Meets Physiology is in the Feelings Become Flesh retreat that we're hosting in Tulum, which will be awesome. We're going to be doing a lot of work there to help you with the hands-on tools. It's also where I'm going to, even though I'm going to unleash the theory that I have with working with the elements, magnets, et cetera, the biogeometry, you're going to get a taste of that in the emotional module. But that will be the hands-on work, the me doing that to you, getting in that trap trauma cycle and getting it out. Currently reading Letting Go. That is the biggest thing. And it's so hard because we are material, right? So the shadow self really is just the human being. Light is not the creator of shadow, as I have said, right? You see a shadow hanging off the side of your wall. It's not light that did that. It's the matter. All of matter is a shadow. We are always a shadow self. And that's part of the guilt and conflict because we live as though that this is bad or this is somehow nefarious or sinful in its own right, the flesh, right? But the flesh is part of the design. So that'd be calling the design inherently wrong. Can we say that of the creational design? We've got it misunderstood, right? It's important to recognize both of those and that there will be a battle in between. But then the more that we're able to let go of the material, doesn't mean that we don't need food, right? Or water, we need things, we understand, right? But the more we can relinquish that is not going to go with us, that is not part of the ethereal experience. It's not the software. It's hard. It's an addiction, right? For sure. But the more we're able to do that, the more free we are. Absolutely. The freer, the lighter we are. Thank you, Deanna, for your response to this. Veronica, if you have time to answer, would love to hear your comments. If you are spiritual but don't have faith in the traditional sense, how can we make sense of this course? Okay, so this is not about religion whatsoever, okay? So the way that this course is constructed, it is designed to show you what I refer to as the alpha and the omega. The alpha and the omega is the beginning and the end of the letters of the alphabet, the Greek alphabet, and it's actually what is said, right? I am the alpha and the omega. That is what's said in the Bible, but it doesn't have to be the God of Abraham, who it is that you ascribe to for your higher power. That can look like whatever you want it to look like. This is a course, whether that you are Christian or whether that you are Jewish or whether that you practice Hinduism and or a Buddhist will feel equally comfortable in. It's not here to put any religion on the table. It's here to put the fact that the organization of life is not an accident. And you will see the living proof. Whatever you want to call that, however you want to discern that, you can do. You retain that ability to do. There's not a right or wrong answer for that. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're just here to show you how to think. With that said, if you are a person of faith and you have concerns about things like the chakras, and you think that people tiptoe or dance around answering this for you because they probably can't answer that for you, we go dive head on and answer those questions with slides that literally says, I'm a Christian. Can I do this? Well, there's certain things about understanding or working with chakras that you can absolutely do, right? But there's some things that you may want to consider that maybe are not on the table for you, because know what you say. Words have power. Know what those sounds mean and what they're intending to accomplish, right? It doesn't mean that working with them in other ways is not valid, but you need to understand those differences. So you can come to us in any one of those disciples of faith. You can come to us with absolutely no faith. You can be the most, atheist, hard-edged scientist that doesn't believe in anything, I still guarantee you by the time you finish the course, you're going to have a moment where you just pause in awe because it will be undeniable. Undeniable. Root cause retreat. All right, I think I got through all the messages, maybe. Okay, so any last questions before we wrap it up for today? And for those of you who have already joined us, how amazing is that? Very helpful. Thank you, MF, to everyone. Oh man, we went through a journey just in this, everybody. Can you imagine the journey that's ready to start for those of you that have already signed up? Your heart told you yes. Now your brain's saying, can I do this? Convince me. Don't worry. We'll bring them both together. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and I think I'm just scrolling through the entire chat here. Yes, I think we've accomplished what we need to accomplish. So, all right, everybody, it's been my privilege to, on behalf of RCC, host this Beyond the Bloodwork Summit with you. I hope that whether you're able to join us on this journey or not, there was some sort of takeaways here that was able to show you there's a different way, that requires you stepping into the spotlight, the steering wheel, and that this will be a journey that is never over, not because that the plight of the suffering should never end, but because the learning should never end, the understanding should never end. That's how we become whole, right? And that's our journey in life. So hopefully you've been able to find a little bit of meaning, purpose, and inspiration to get back on that good fight and to know that it's not over. You are not forsaken. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.